Question number 1, we have a decimal and a fraction. Now this right here has a denominator of 10, so that makes it a friendly fraction. So we're going to answer this as a decimal. Now to turn a fraction into a decimal, what do? You divide the numerator by the denominator. So let's turn that fraction into a decimal. 9 is my numerator, 10 is my denominator, so 9 goes on the inside and 10 goes on the outside. 10 does not go into 9, so I add a decimal and a 0, and then 10 goes into 90. 9 times 10 times 9 is 9, and that gives us 0. So this is 26.95 divided by negative 4.9. There's that 0.9, and it goes right there. Now what do? You just divide. So we have 26.95 that goes on the inside, and if you guys hear any weird noises, that is just my cat, divided by 4.9. Now we have a problem here, and so the outside decimal has to be moved once. So the inside decimal has to be moved once. Okay, so that gives us 49 going into 269.5 because my decimal moved right there. Now, 49 is almost 50, so we're going to look at this as how many times does 50 go into this number, and then we'll just multiply by 49 when we get there. So 49 does not go into 2. It does not go into 26, but it would go into 269. Let's think about how many times 50 would go into 269. 50 would go into 269 probably about 5 times because 50 would go into 26 right here 5 times. We'll come off to the side and we'll do 29 times 5. 9 times 5 is 45, so write down a 5, carry my 4. 5 times 4 is 20, plus 4 is 24. So this gives 245 right here. Subtract, 9 minus 5 is 4. 6 minus 4 is 2, and then 2 minus 2 is 0. 24 is less than 49, so we did that correctly. And then we have how many times does 49 go into 245? Well, if we look right here, we just got 245 by multiplying it by 5. So this is a 5 up here. We just bring that decimal straight up, and then 5 times 49 is 245. So this gives us 5.5. But then don't forget that we have a positive divided by a negative. And what is a positive divided by a negative? That is a negative. So our final answer is negative 5.5. And then what goes in this blank right here is a negative divided by a positive is a negative. Okay, this right here says solve and graph the following. The first step is that we do a line through the inequality sign. Then I'm going to circle my variable and its coefficient. Now, my coefficient in this case is not negative, so I don't have to flip, but if it was negative, I would. All right, and then what's my next step? Subtract 15 from both sides. And we're going to drop down that 3x. And then this right here, is this same signs or different signs? Same signs. And same signs add or subtract? They add. So I have 4 plus 5, which gives me 9, and then I have 2 plus 1, which gives me 3. And then whenever you add or subtract, you just keep the sign of the bigger number, so this is going to be a negative. Don't forget that you have an inequality happening and not an equal sign. All right, now what do? We divide by 3 on both sides. And then that gives me x on the left side, and then on the right side, I have a negative divided by a positive, which is a negative, and then I have 39 divided by 3. 3 goes into 3 one time. 1 times 3 is 3. Subtracting that gives me 0. And then I drop down my 9, and 3 goes into 9 13 times. So I have x is less than or equal to negative 13. So when I come over here, is this right here going to be an open or closed dot? Because I have this. Since it has the line underneath it, I'm going to have a closed dot. If it doesn't have the line underneath it, it's going to be open. So it's going to be closed right here, and then it's going to point to the left. I make an arrow out of it, and it points in the left direction. This right here, we're going to go through and we're going to fill this in. So because it has a closed dot, that means that it is equal to. So it has a line. And then this goes this direction. So it's going to be that symbol. This right here is open. So that means I do not have a line underneath it. And then this goes this direction. This right here is a closed dot. So it has a line. And then it points this direction. So it's going to go like that. And then this right here is an open dot. So there is no line. And it goes this direction. So it's going to look like this. Okay, this one says, Russell has a collection of 1,200 pennies. Of these pennies, 25% are dated before 1980, 35% are dated from 1980 to 2000, and the rest are dated after 2000. How many pennies are dated after 2000? So I am working with percents. So a percent means that I set up a proportion. So I know that I'm going to have to set up a proportion. In this case, did anything change? Nothing changed. He started with a collection of 1,200 and he ended with a collection of 1,200. So I'm going to have a part over whole equals percent over 100. Now, he has a collection of 1,200. So is that a part or a whole? This right here is a total, so that is going to be a whole. Now, for the rest of it, it wants pennies dated after 2000, but it doesn't tell me how many pennies are dated after 2000, and it also doesn't tell me what percents. I do know that 25% are dated before 1980, and I know that 35% are dated from 1980 to 2000. And then I do know something special about percents. I know that all percents add to equal 100. So right now, I am looking at 25% before 1980 and 35% from 1980 to 2000. And I'm trying to figure out how many are after 2000. So what would I do? I would add 25 plus 35. And that would tell me 60%. Now this 60% is before 2000. I want all pennies after 2000. So what percent is left for 2000? We would find that 40% is left for after 2000 because I know that 60 plus 2000 is going to equal my 100%. So this is before 2000. This is after 2000. So I know that it's going to be a total of 40% for after 2000. And then percent means we set up a proportion. So 40 is going to go into this blank right here. And when I set it up, I would have x over 1,200 equals 40 over 100. We solve proportions by cross multiplying, so I do x times 100, which gives me 100x. And then I do 40 times 1,200. Now I start with 4 times 12. 4 times 12 is 48. Is 48. And then I tack on 1, 2, 3 zeros. Divide both sides by 100. These zeros are going to cross out, and that's going to leave me with x equals 480. Right, this one says, write an equation that represents this table right here. Now, when we see a table, we draw arrows. And when I have an equation coming from a table, I do what side divided by what side? Right side divided by left side. So let's draw our arrows. I'm going to go from here to here, and then I'll go from here to here. Now on our left side, we have how do you get from 5 to 10? So I would do 10 minus 5 because I subtract my bottom number from my top number. And 10 minus 5 gives me 5. On the left side, or I'm sorry, on the right side, what would I subtract? I would do the bottom number minus the top number, which would give me 940 minus 470. So your minus 0 is 0. This 4 turns into a 14, and that becomes an 8. 14 minus 7 is 7, and 8 minus 4 is 4. So that gives me 470. Then I just do right side divided by left side. So I would do 470 divided by 5. 5 goes into 47, 5 does not go into 4, but it goes into 47 9 times. 9 times 5 is 45, so I write down 45 and subtract. 47 minus 45 is 2. Drop down that 0, and then 5 goes into 24 times. So this would be y equals 94x. All right, this one says, the cost of bananas at the grocery store is $3.36 for 6 pounds. What is the cost for each pound of bananas? So what would I do? I would divide. I know that 6 pounds of bananas, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, that's 6. Okay, it's not saying that it's $3.30 for each one. That is not what it's saying. It is saying for the whole thing, it is $3.30. Which means I'm trying to figure out the cost of each banana, which means I'm splitting the $3.30 up between the 6 pounds. So I would do $3.30 divided by 6. 6 does not go into 3, but 6 goes into 33 5 times. Bring up the decimal. 5 times 6 is 30. Subtracting that gives me 3, and drop down that 0. 6 goes into 30 another 5 times, and then 5 times 6 is 30. Subtracting that gives me 0. So this would be 55 cents. This one says, find the circumference of a circle with a diameter of 11 meters. So it wants me to find circumference. Now, what letter does circumference start with? Circumference starts with the letter C. So that means I'm not going to use this formula. It says with a diameter. Diameter starts with the letter D, so which formula am I using? I am using this one. Circumference equals pi times diameter. Well, it says to find the circumference, so I don't know what that is. Pi is 3.14, and then my diameter is 11. So I would do 3.14 times 11. 4 times 1 is 4, 1 times 1 is 1, 1 times 3 is 3. I'm on my next row now, so I add a 0. 1 times 4 is 4, 1 times 1 is 1, and 1 times 3 is 3. Add it all together. And then I have 2 decimal places, so I'll have 2 decimal places down here. And that would give me a circumference of 34.54 meters. The next one says, find the area of a circle with the diameter of 8 millimeters. Now, it wants us to find area, and area starts with the letter A. That means I will be using this formula. Area equals pi times radius squared. Now, if you remember, I don't like using the formula with radius squared. So instead, I say, okay, what is the same thing as radius squared? That would be radius times radius. So I have area equals pi times radius times radius. Well, if we look, it says a diameter of 8. Diameter does not start with the letter R. That is not a radius. So how do I go from diameter to radius? I would divide by 2. Right now, I have 8. I want to know what this portion right here is. So I would do 8 divided by 2, and that gives me 4. So my radius equals 4. Diameter to radius, divide by 2. All right, so I would have area equals 3.14 times my radius of 4 times my radius of 4. Area equals 3.14, and then 4 times 4 gives me 16. So I have 3.14 times 16. 4 times 6 is 24, so I write down a 4, carry my 2. 6 times 1 is 6, plus 2 is 8. 6 times 3 is 18. I'm on my next row now, so I add a 0. 1 times 4 is 4, 1 times 1 is 1, and 1 times 3 is 3. Add it all together. 4 plus 0 is 4. 8 plus 4 is 12, so I write down a 2, carry my 1. 1 plus 8 is 9, plus 1 is 10, so I write down a 0, carry my 1. 1 plus 1 is 2, plus 3 is 5. I have 2 decimal places here, so I will have 2 decimal places down here, and that will give me an area of 50.24 millimeters squared. This one says the figure is composed of a parallelogram and a trapezoid. So we have right here a parallelogram, and I know that my area for a parallelogram is area equals base times height. Well, I see that my base is 26, and then my height would be this right here. Now, you would first say, oh, that looks like it's 32, but 32 is all of this. So we need to cut off this portion that's right here to find our height. So how would I figure out what the height of my parallelogram is? Well, I see right here that my height from my trapezoid is 16. And so this right here is 16, and that's what I need to cut off. So I would need to do 32 minus 16 to figure out what the height of my parallelogram is. This 2 turns into a 12, this 3 turns into a 2. 12 minus 6 is 6, and 2 minus 1 is 1. So this right here is also 16. Then I do, for the parallelogram, base times height, so I would do 26 times 16. 6 times 6 is 36, so I write down a 6, carry my 3. 6 times 2 is 12, plus 3 is 15. My next row now, so I add a 0. 1 times 6 is 6, and 1 times 2 is 2. Add it all together, and that gives me 416 for the parallelogram. Then, for my area of a trapezoid, I have 1/2 times base 1 plus base 2 times height. Now, I don't like that formula, so I rewrite it like this. Base 1 plus base 2 times height divided by 2. That means I need a total of 3 numbers, and I'm going to erase all of this that I drew on here. So looking at my trapezoid, I see that my two bases, which remember bases are always across from each other. So my two bases are across from each other, so it's here and here. So this is base 1 and base 2. So I would just plug that in. I would say 26 plus 40. And then I would have my height, which is right here on the trapezoid. So my height right here is 16. So I'd multiply that times 16, and I would divide it by 2. Now I just always go in the most logical order for this. You always have to add first. So we have 26 plus 40. 6 plus 0 is 6, and then 2 plus 4 is 6. So I have 66 times 16 divided by 2. Now, you could do this in any kind of order. I'm going to divide first. I'm going to do 16 divided by 2 because that's going to make my life easier. And 16 divided by 2 gives me 8. So I have 66 times 8. 6 times 8 is 48, so I write down an 8, carry my 4. And then 6 times 8 is 48, and then plus 4 is 52. So that gives me 528 for the trapezoid, but it wants me to find the area of the whole thing, so how do I do that? I would add together my area for the parallelogram, and I would add my area to the trapezoid, so I would have 416 plus 528. Six plus 8 is 14, so I write down a 4, carry my 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. 2 plus 2 is 4. And then 4 plus 5 is 9. So that gives me a total area of 944 centimeters squared. This one says the volume of this rectangular pyramid is 40 cubic inches. What is the height? Now this big B right here stands for what? Area of the base. So, first thing we need to do is we need to take a look. It says the volume is 40 cubic inches. So volume starts with a V. So that means that this right here is V. So where my V is, I'm going to put 40. Now, my big B stands for area of the base. If we look, this is my base. And how would you find the area of that? To find the area, I would do 5 times 4. And 5 times 4 gives me 20. So this right here is 20. And it says after you figure this out, solve it like an equation. So I would have 40 equals 20 times h divided by 3. Draw a line through your equal sign. The first thing we do is we get rid of this division right here. And how do you get rid of division? We multiply. So you would multiply both sides by 3. Well, 3 times 4 gives me 12. And then I just tack on the 0, and that gives me 120 equals 20h, because these 3's canceled out. Now, what do? Divide both sides by 20. These zeros can't cross out, and so that gives me 12 divided by 2, which gives me a height of 6. This one says there are 6 red marbles, 2 blue marbles, and 2 white marbles in a bag. Jose is going to draw out of the bag 3 times and will not replace the marble in the bag each time. So how many actions did he just do? He did 3 actions. So how many fractions do we have? We have 3 fractions. And then if we have more than one fraction, what do we do with those fractions? We multiply them. So I need to figure out the probability of drawing out 3 red marbles. So first, remember that probability is what we want over the total. So how many red marbles do we have? We have 6. And then how many total marbles do we have? Well, we have 6 plus 2 plus 2, which gives me 10. Now, the second time that I go to draw out a red marble, it says he will not replace the marble. So we went from having 6 red marbles to how many marbles since he did not put one back? We now only have 5 red marbles. And since he did not put the marble back, how many total marbles do we have? 9. Now the next time he goes to draw out a red marble, now he's drawn out 2 red marbles. So how many red marbles are we left with? 4. Out of how many total marbles? 8. We simplify before we multiply, so I'm going to do 6 and 10 first. And what are both 6 and 10 divisible by? They're both divisible by 2. Then 6 divided by 2 gives me 3, and 10 divided by 2 gives me 5. Next, I'll check 5 and 9, and there's nothing that can be simplified with 5 and 9. So I'll check 4 and 8. 4 and 8 are both divisible by what? They are both divisible by 2, but more importantly, they're both divisible by 4. And 4 divided by 4 gives me 1. And then 8 divided by 4 gives me 2. Now I check my diagonals. So I'm going to start with 3 and 9. And what are both 3 and 9 divisible by? 3. So 3 divided by 3 gives me 1, and 9 divided by 3 gives me 3. And then I'll check these diagonals. So I have 5 and 5. That's the exact same number, so I can just cross those out. And then I'll check these diagonals, and I have 3 and 1, which cannot be simplified. And then I have nothing and 2, which that definitely can't be simplified. So now I just do tops times tops and bottoms times bottoms. I have 1 times 1 and 3 times 2. And 1 times 1 gives me 1, and 3 times 2 gives me 6. This one says, a farmer plants 40 acres of land. How many acres are taken up by corn? Well, if I look over here, I see percents all over the place. So when I see a percent, I have to set up a proportion. In this case, nothing changed, so I'm going to do a part over whole equals percent over 100. Now, taking a look, we don't know how much percent is taken up by corn, but I do know that I can figure that out. Remember, all percents always add up to equal what? 100. So in this case, how would I figure out what my corn is? I would add all of these other percents together, so I would have 40 plus 20 plus 10, and that would give me 70. And so then, what percent does that leave left over for corn if all percents add to 100? Well, I would know that I would have 70 plus whatever corn is would equal 100. So that would mean that I would have 70 plus 30. So there's my percent for corn. So that goes right there in my percent spot. And then it says 40 acres of land. So that's a total. So that would go in the whole. So I would have x over 40 equals 30 over 100. And I solve proportions by cross multiplying. So I do 40 times 30, which would give me 4 times 3, which is 12, and then 2 zeros. So I just tack those on, and that gives me 1200. And then I have x times 100, which gives me 100x. Then I divide both sides by 100. And these zeros cross out and leave me with x equals 12.